Hey folks, Mike Dawkins from World Cast Anglers here with your Jacksonville fly fishing forecast for the weekend of July 26th and 27th. Not much new to report here. A bit of the rinse and repeat of the summer season that we're sort of naturally seeing. We're having hot, dry conditions. We're seeing our summer hatches. We're starting to see some climbing water temperatures in some areas that are unfriendly to our trout friends. And we're sort of just on status quo with some solid fishing opportunities looking into this weekend for what we have. The things to note and the things that I would put in the back of your head as you head out on the water for this next weekend or even the next week or so is we've got our terrestrial game is going to start building here in the next 10 days to 14 days. We're starting to see a lot more hoppers. We're starting to see a lot more ants and flying ants, beetles and things like that. So I'd start adding those bugs into your fly boxes, into your boat bags, and start using them sort of sparingly to A, throw maybe something different at the fish that they haven't seen, and B, start imitating some of that rise of those terrestrials in that terrestrial game that we're going to see become more prominent into August. The other part is remember your best practices of our trout water temperatures, anything around that 67, 68 degree mark. Be aware, start using heavier tippets, keep fish in the water, have your thermometers, be using them, get on the water early, fish early, and get your work done early too, are all going to be befriending and helpful to our trout friend populations as we look into the summer season ahead, especially as it stays as hot and dry as it is. We've got our Fly Shop happy hour as we do every Friday during the summer season, 4 p.m. until close. We've got half off dries and 50% off trout streamers, nymphs, foam flies. Any of the trout flies there are half off. We've got dollar tall boys for those 21 and up, and our sale rack is 60% off. 4 p.m. until close every Friday of the summer season. Saturday, our weather is looking just as equal as Sunday, and the 10-day forecast: sunny, hot, dry, highs in the low 80s, lows in the low 50s. Our 10-day forecast, the beginning of next week, looks like a little bit of a scorcher. We've got some days in the 90s with hot, dry weather persisting in through our 10-day forecast. So those best practices of our trout water temperatures and those terrestrials, as I was alluding to, are going to become even more important. Palisades Reservoir is 69% of capacity. Jackson Lake is 92% of capacity. It's good to see those water managers holding water higher in the basin and higher in the river systems, as they are the harder ones to fill later on in the future. The South Fork of the Snake, 12,200 CFS coming out of Palisades Dam, 12,300 CFS there around Heise. We're starting to see the South Fork, get into some of that traditional summer fishing pattern. We're still seeing salmon flies scattered throughout the river. They're mostly in section 2 and section 1, but man, what a hatch that has been this year. Very consistent, very thick, and those bugs are still around going into some of the last weekends of August. We're seeing a lot of golden stones. We're seeing a lot of yellow sallies left over, as well as the PMDs and caddis. The riffle game is still there, and it's still pretty darn good, but those fish are wary. They are technical. Bring the 4.5, the 5, the 5.5, X, your small CDC cripples, small CDC emergers, any of the little techie Spring Creek patterns on the riffles have been productive, as they have seen a lot of pressure. The bank fishing, if you can get those bugs in tight and keep them in there, has still been really productive, with your G Superfly, your Henry's Fort Goldenstone, or your salmon fly and patterns like that. Pair those with a dropper or two in the middays on seams, shelves, and drop-offs. That has seen some productivity, but those afternoons are starting to get a little tough when the sun gets high in the sky and those water temperatures, are rising, and the fish have seen some pressure. So get your work done early there on the South Fork of the Snake. That's going to be a common theme you'll probably hear me talk through the rest of the summer season. The Snake in Jackson, 1,760 CFS coming out of Jackson Lake Dam, 3,830 CFS there on the lower river. Dry fly fishing on the Snake right now is pretty darn good in that early morning period. Chubby Chernobyl's bugs, G Superfly, any of those Chernobyl variant styled flies has been really productive, as well as your PMDs and those general dry attractors, as well as caddis, yellow sallies, any of those types of things. Dry fly fishing is as good in sort of summer fashion that we expect on the snake there directly in Jackson. Pair those with a dropper like the South Fork, and you'll double your fun. We're starting to still see some of those warmer water temperatures, especially below moose, hit that 68 to 70 degree mark. So on the water early, get your fish back in the water, no undue stress, protect and help our trout populations out through this warm, scorching, period. So we have them for future generations, as well as the fall fishing season, they're looking forward. The Teton in Teton Valley, 282 CFS around Driggs, 532 CFS on the lower river. Similarly, we're starting to see low clear flows on the Teton. Be stealthy, long leaders, light tippets, smaller profiled flies. The PMD fishing has still been very solid, and we're still seeing a smattering of good golden stones and some of that foam attractor fishing that has been really fun and really good. Once again, get on the water early, maybe go late if we get some overcast or some precipitation or some cooler water temperatures, but I'm going to err on the early morning periods, especially for the PMDs and the PMD spinner fall. Henry's Fork, we've got 1,020 CFS coming out of Box Canyon, 1,830 CFS there on the lower river. We're starting to see a little decrease in flows, but I think that's because we're starting to see some of our first hay cuttings and decrease of consumptive water use as some of these first crops get, tilled up and cut and baled and out of the way, but I would expect those flows to maybe come back up a bit. The Box Canyon is still fishing well, dry droppers, golden stones, maybe a green drake or something of a big mayfly pattern left over from, some of the drakes and the flavs and things of that from the early season, paired with your droppers or nymph rigs with small rubber legs, and your zebra midges and small sparse tailwater patterns can still get them. The ranch has been good. PMDs have been the name of the game. Maybe some caddis here in the evenings, but be ready with a whole mix of the different, life cycles of the PMDs: adults, cripples, spinners, CDC mergers. Bring it all. Get ready to head hunt, and sort of poke around, find a couple in the game. But definitely it's been a PMD opportunity, but we're starting to see the rise of the terrestrials as well. Those flying ants, the CDC honey ants are starting to get out. Small hoppers, small beetles, as I was saying earlier, should definitely find a place in your fly box if you're heading toward the ranch. The lower river has been sort of specifically PMDs and terrestrials. Again, early morning periods, while those water temperatures are the coolest, are going to be the most productive and the most healthy for our trout friends. DIY walk wade stuff is still fishing in true summer fashion. Dry droppers, attractors, anything, you name it. This is the time of year to get off some of the main rivers and go explore, go check something out, hit a trail, hit the Beckler, hit, the Hoback, Buffalo Fork, Grovaunt, Pacific Creek, the Grays. Man, we've got so much of that stuff in our area that not a lot of anglers pursue and check out, that it really provides, a complete fly fishing picture for all anglers in the area, that you don't necessarily have to be in a boat. Check those out during the summer season if you want to do something new, get out of the boat and explore something new. That's what I've got. As I said, it's a bit of rinse and repeat. And looking into our 10-day forecast, I'd probably expect a little bit similar, unless we get some monsoonal moisture changing things up with our summer season. Once again, Fly Shop happy hour, 4 p.m. until close. We've got half off dries, nymphs, and foam flies. We've also got a half off our trout streamers, dollar tallboys for those 21 and up, and 60% off our sale rack. So have a great weekend out on the water. Enjoy the summer season. Wet wading, fishing opportunities abound, and be safe out there. We thank everybody for the business, and we'll see you here next week.